Hello again, YouTube. Doing another monster analysis live. If you're not familiar, I'm looking at random creatures from Monster Core and giving them my take and analysis on them. It's not going too super deep, but we've covered a few so far, and I want to do some more. So let's go again. Spin. Ooh. Okay, a classic, the Reefclaw. Alright. And we have a picture this time. Alright, we've got our nasty lobster eels, snaky boys. The Reefclaw. Actually, I have a chunky bit of text here that I'll read. Reefclaws are aquatic monsters that resemble huge shrimp or lobsters, as one might expect from its name. A Reefclaw's oversized claws are powerful weapons with vice-like grip and the ability to inject potent venom into unfortunate prey. Though Reefclaws can't speak, they are intelligent enough to understand the local languages of humanoids near their hunting grounds. The creatures sometimes listen to conversations, either to gain intelligence on the best place to ambush aquatic or land-dwelling prey, or merely for entertainment value. Reefclaws are particularly fond of listening to people with high-pitched voices. Reefclaws are usually solitary hunters, but small swarms of female Reefclaws have been known to gather around a single male for mating purposes, or together for the communal raising of their broods. In the latter case, the females will perform widespread hunts in order to bring back a large enough bounty to feed their young. Such hunting parties are extremely dangerous. They've been known to tip over small fishing boats and attack those who fall overboard. Once a Reefclaw has decided upon a course of action, it follows through even if doing so spells its own end. More than one Reefclaw survivor has said that the creature released its bone-crushing grasp only after the brains were leaking from its broken skull, and even then, the Reefclaw was able to perform a terrible last slash as part of its dying breath. During mating season, female Reefclaws are often a little more pragmatic and release their prey before endangering themselves and their offspring. Despite their intelligence and accompanying moral quandaries, Reefclaws frequently find their way onto the dinner plates of land-dwelling hunters such as humans and hobgoblins. According to those who have a taste for Reefclaw flesh, the meat is either delectably sweet for Reefclaws raised in colder waters, or slightly tangy in the case of warm water Reefclaws. Most people who know Reefclaws' intellect find the act of eating them distasteful, but this does not dissuade unscrupulous nobles in coastal regions for whom Reefclaw meat is a delicacy well worth the expense. Likewise, fishers who focus on the bottom line of their ledgers are more than willing to hunt the dangerous creatures, or even better, hire out the task to naive adventurers. They're common and have a standard DC of their level for identification. They are level 1 aquatic aberrations. They're small, so they're sizable. Like they're not itsy bitsy like an actual lobster. They're like probably a good like 2-3 feet long on average. They have a perception of 8 and dark vision, as most aberrations do. And they speak, or they can't speak, but they know common generally, and as mentioned in their lore, if they live, say if there's Reefclaws in Kyonin, they probably speak Elven instead, or they understand Elven instead. If they're in the rivers around the Five Kings Mountains, they might understand Dwarven instead, or similar. They have acrobatics, athletics, to which they have a specific override when swimming, which is a little redundant, but I'll explain that later. So acrobatics is very good for them being able to move along narrow surfaces, as well as being able to approach or pass through enemies without provoking certain problems, including getting over uneven ground. So that's probably going to be the main use of acrobatics for them, is moving over uneven ground or perhaps narrow supports on like docks or the like. They have a +1 strength, so they're not weak by any means. A dex of 4, which is their strongest. They are only slightly above animal intelligence, so they can understand language, but they're not particularly smart. They have a +2 con, and wisdom and charisma of +1 each. Surprisingly that they actually get a bonus to charisma. Most creatures like this don't. They usually either have 0 or a negative. So these creatures are surprisingly capable at intimidation and even potentially disguising themselves. They could have a slight bonus, perhaps by caking themselves in mud to appear as little more than a more traditional lobster of some kind, or even as just a muddy lump. And let's check our bonuses here. So for level 1, you're looking at a spread of 5-1, and they look to fall into that pretty well. No extremes. Looks like they're primarily just moderate to low, and of course with a extremely low intelligence. So what there is the exception of Dex being slightly higher, and they've got +8 to swim. So normally when you see these modifiers where it's specifically towards an action or subset of actions, it's usually either +2 or +4 over the given value. For other things, with the exception of NPCs, which sometimes can have vastly higher bonuses because of their non-combat level. And so at level 1, we're looking at 7 as moderate, and so they've got a moderate acrobatics, and they have a slightly above moderate athletics to swim, but a low athletics otherwise. And that's pretty standard. So they've got good swimming, which again is a bit redundant, and the reason for that is they have a swim speed, which basically means that they automatically succeed most swim checks. The exception is going to be if the water is rough enough to prompt a check anyway to navigate it. Normally, rough water is like difficult or greater difficult terrain for creatures with swim speed, but sometimes it can be severe enough that it prompts a check still to perhaps escape a current, a whirlpool, or something similar. Any effect that will call for a specific check, ideally. They have an AC of 20, a Fortitude of 7, a Reflex of 9, and Will of 4. Which, let's say 5-point spread on them, so slightly more than like a middling roll, which is usually a spread of about 4. And let's see, so they have an almost extreme, oh no, that's the skills. I'm looking at the wrong thing. An AC of 20 at first level is above extreme. They have a crazy AC. I'm not sure if this is a holdover from something or if this is balanced out somewhere else. We'll take a look at that. But that is a very, very high AC for their level. Normally extreme AC for level 1 is 19. So they got something. They gotta have something to balance that out. 9 is just below high, so high is normally 10. 7 is moderate. And we've got a 4, which is low. So they do have a slightly erring towards weak defense scale, but only just on saves. But a crazy extreme AC for their level. This is definitely more meant to be a lower level creature that you experience at higher levels, rather than at level 1, I would say. It's got 17 HP. Let's see how that stands up. So it's slightly above low HP. So they are vulnerable in that aspect. And they don't have any defensive abilities. They do have a reaction that is in their defense section, but they don't have anything that boosts their defense further. So they're reduced to 0 hit points, and they make a claw strike before dying, basically. So they have a death throw, and they have an absolute trash speed. And this is probably another reason why their AC is so high, is on land, they're sitting ducks. In the water, they're dangerous. They have a swim speed of 30 feet. But if you're in the water, they become their threat level spikes. But if you're on land, it drops horribly. These are very much an offensive creature for the most part, except that, again, that super extreme AC for their level. In theory, I think that there's also the thing about like the surface of water granting concealment, so they're not necessarily going to be able to hit you every time if you're like in a boat and they're in the water. But let's look at their attacks. They have a claw, which has grab, which is far less powerful than it used to be, because it is going to be using its athletics to try and grab onto you, instead of automatically grabbing on. So we got +9 with 1d6 +1 slashing, and this is probably where we're going to see things start scaling back. So no resistances or weaknesses, but it does have low HP for the most part. I have +9, which is a high to hit. But 1d6 +1 is going to be 4 average damage with a slightly higher ceiling. So they got low damage, despite this not being agile. It is finesse, but it's not agile. So they have really low damage. However, they make up for it with having grab. So they get a free attempt at map to grapple. It costs an action still, but it doesn't have multiple attack penalty. They have constrict, which is basically if it's got you grabbed or restrained, it can deal damage to you with a basic fortitude save. So they're more likely to deal damage to you this way. It's not much, again, 1d6, but it is something. So they're latching on and crushing, and anytime they hit you with your claw, a fortitude save for poison, which is 1d6 poison damage and enfeebled 1, 1d6 poison damage and enfeebled 2 for a maximum of 4 rounds per hit. Of course, not stacking, but resetting, I believe. It's actually been a minute. I forgot. Does it reset? Let's do afflictions. Multiple exposures of the same curse or disease currently affected have no effect. For poison, however, failing the initial saving throw against a new exposure increases the stage by 1 or by 2 if you critically fail, without affecting the maximum duration. So the more they hit you, they can push this up and keep it up. So like if you heal back down to stage 1, if they hit you again and you fail again, they crank you back up to stage 2. And so that can be really damaging, and in which case, assuming you fail the DC 17 fortitude save, which is what for first level is a high DC for first level, then you're taking not only another d6 of poison damage, which is another 3 damage here, making it high, I want to say high damage. So it's actually making it higher than high damage. So yeah, this is a slightly overtuned creature, I would say. But it does require multiple moving parts for it to deal its massive damage. I definitely think that from a design standpoint, this is not something that you are supposed to start the game and go fight a bunch of them. This is something that you are supposed to be like level 2 or level 3, maybe even level 4 and fight a bunch of them. Both Layla and Summer almost died to them. Yeah, they are nasty little things. Again, practically sitting ducks on land, but in the water, absolutely horrifying. And they'll smack you on death if you're in melee combat. They're easy to take out at a range. That's their biggest weakness, is they have no range defenses or options. The only thing they can do is try to run away. Or try and... They fought them on land. With other... I don't remember the details of the fight, but yeah, they're nasty. Their AC is way too high. Like, this should be... like, maybe 18. Maybe 18 with a few more hit points. They are way too high AC for what they are. Like, in theory, I want to say that there's just something missing, that maybe when they're on land, they're considered prone. And that would lower their AC to 18. But there's nothing that says that. So, like, big shrug, you know? Side. I think that Reefclaws are overtuned for an early level creature, but they make for a really good, like, creature where you're a few levels higher and there's a bunch of them. They won't be too easy, but they'll still offer a little bit of a challenge, like that threat of being swarmed. And I think that's their design intention, basically, due to this. I also think that perhaps they are meant to be considered prone while on land, but it's not stated anywhere. The way for them to do something like that would be for them to have no land speed, or to have an ability perhaps in defense or up here, saying that if they are not swimming, they're prone and they have to crawl, or something like that. But we'll call it there on the analysis of the Reefclaw. I gotta remember, for the YouTube people, hello, thank you for coming. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.